EDU 503 Sports Law, Week 6. I chose to do case study 2.3, Benjamin vs. State. Can be found on page 18 of the case study book. Case history for this case is Thomas Benjamin, 11-year-old boy, attended a college hockey game that was located at the Romney Arena in New York on November 16, 1979. Thomas was accompanied to the game with his brother and a friend. The three boys paid admission to the games, and when they went in, the arena was kind of open seating format. So they found some open seats on the south side of the arena behind the south goal, and sat down and watched the first game go. Towards the end of the first game, they decided to go get some refreshments from the concession stand, and on their way to the concession stands, which was located on the opposite side of the arena, the boys got their drinks and were on their way back when they realized that the view of the hockey games would be much better from the sideline. So they found some open seating next to the players' bench on the sideline, and continued to their seats. And the boys sat down, and throughout the second game, there was a point where a stray puck from the game flew into the stands and struck Thomas upside the forehead. Thomas was cared for immediately with first aid by arena staff, and then later was taken to the hospital for further analysis, where they ran him through some tests and dismissed him that night. It wasn't until the next morning when Thomas awoke that he was feeling nauseous and started to vomit. So Thomas's parents reached out to their pediatrician, which told them to take him to the hospital. So he went and checked in at the Upstate Medical Center in Syracuse, New York. The doctors there at the medical center ran some more tests and requested x-rays of his head. And then the doctors came back to find that Thomas had suffered about a 4 millimeter depression skull fracture, which was causing his symptoms, and so Thomas was dismissed from the hospital after further evaluation, and then later, about 2 months later, finally recovered from the injury fully enough to return to school. And thankfully, in this case, Thomas was not. Thomas had no permanent damage besides surgical scarring. Facts about the arena that play a big part of this case, and so the Romney Arena was home of the State University of New York at Oswego. The facility, like I said earlier, was a state-run facility built for hockey. The goals on the rink, which was kind of oblong-shaped, faced north and south, and along the rink was equipped with about a 3.5-foot dasher boards along the sides of the rink, and then on outside of the rink, the bleachers were elevated slightly for more of a viewing purposes, and then the state also equipped the rink with different heights, 6-foot height fencing behind both goal areas to prevent pucks from entering into the crowd. And then along both sidelines, the fencing was 3 foot tall, again to help avoid the stray pucks from flying in. What the arena did not do is place protective fencing in front of the players' benches. So this was actually about a 20-foot gap of no fencing to protect fans from the areas around the players' bench. And throughout this case, this is where the boys were sitting, pretty close to the players' bench, so the stray puck passed through this section of about 20 foot of no fencing to protect the spectators during the event. So the plaintiffs in this case is the Benjamin family. The plaintiff's argument in this case was that they seek compensation for his injuries on the grounds that the state negligently failed to protect the spectators with adequate protection. So the defendants obviously are the state of New York, and the state argued two main points in this case for their side of it. Number one being that the state only had the duty to exercise reasonable care under the circumstances to protect its spectators. And then number two, that Thomas, by sitting where he sat, assumed the risk of getting hit by a stray puck because of the area he chose to sit in for the second game. So case findings. After the court went through some witnesses, some experts came in to talk about this case, and then all the evidence. The main things that helped the courts decide this decision, number one was they decided that Thomas, being the age of 11, could not have the knowledge of the risks of sitting in the seat that he did. They felt that an 11-year-old boy didn't have the knowledge to really recognize that the area that he chose to sit for Game 2 was a very high-risk area for this to happen. The second main thing that the courts decided was due to the experts' testimony. They brought in the plaintiffs brought in an expert to explain that the state did not do a very good job to provide the adequate protection needed for its spectators by showing multiple arenas that were set for hockey that had the protective fencing in front of the players' bench to avoid this 20-foot gap of unsafe area for fans to sit, for spectators to sit behind. So after those two things were the two major points that the courts found and discussed and decided. So the Thomas and the plaintiffs, the Benjamin family, was awarded damages in the sum of $24,000 in compensation. So AD implications on this. I found this case to be very similar to the Notre Dame, the Bauman versus Notre Dame case that I did a couple weeks ago. But to me, the big thing for an AD, I think, in this situation, one would be to make sure that you have your facility checklist and that you're regularly checking that checklist to make sure and have multiple opinions on it, to maybe even talk to the other arenas that are similar in your sport to make sure that your safety guidelines match up with maybe theirs too, to make sure that you are protecting your spectators, your players, and your coaches and your officials. And the other two things I thought about would be to make sure that you have posting of signage in each section, even if it's not a very highly likely chance that a puck could leave the rink. I think the added signage of showing and telling the spectators that there is a chance that pucks will fly into the stands in each section and then on the back of each dasher board. So it's kind of a constant reminder that that the puck could leave the ice and it could fly into the stands, which could cause possible hazards and injuries. And then also having an announcement periodically throughout the game over the intercom of again just reminding the same thing of to be aware of flying objects from the ice, and It's not uncommon that pucks in hockey do leave the rink and find their way into the stands. So I think just, again, making sure that we stay on top of alerting the fans of possible risks, whether it's announcements or signage, but then also taking our part of making sure we assess our facility the best we can, and making sure we have the adequate protection for all spectators. And that's this case.